Welcome to Generation Me. I'm your host, Quentin Wimberly.
And I'm the other host, Keanu Perez Wimberly.
And today we will be discussing various topics from a generational standpoint. The first topic that we're starting off with is whether or not social media makes us lonelier, or does it bring us closer together or more connected?
All right. I just want to start off by doing kind of a little introduction about who we are as people. I'm 22 years old. I live in this new age world, 2025. And I think that there's a lot of topics to discuss. And I think me and my dad, we're going to try our best to, make things in kind of like a almost chronological order type of thing. We want to make sure that things sound and make as best sense to us and you as possible. A lot of this stuff is mostly, you can say opinion based, but it's also kind of what we see and how we feel about, kind of like just what's been going on in this world. And you guys are free to leave in the comment section down below. You guys can start conversations and, we'll do our best to reply to as many as possible. Dad, you got anything to say?
Yeah, like my son said, we're speaking from an opinion-based standpoint. However, this is a conversation that he and I will have off camera. And we decided to bring it on camera to see if we are alone in our thought processes, or is this something that everyone is seeing? So I started off, I'm born in the 80s. My son is born in 2000. So I'm a millennial. He's a Gen Z, respectively. And I'll just start off with social media in general. So I existed before social media. A lot of people of my age range and older has existed. And I remember when things had to be more intimate, if you will, even friendships. You had to go up and ask someone, do you want to be my friend? Or you just naturally, organically become friends for playing sports, or, meeting in the mall, or your parents being friends with each other. And to me, it felt more fresh and easy. And you get to bounce your experiences off someone. And then in the modern era, I feel like we have lost a little bit of that. As a basketball coach, a former teacher, and just someone who interact with kids nowadays, from my son's age all the way down to maybe preschool age. I noticed there was a drop off in social skills. Not that all of them can't communicate, but there are some instances where communication is a little lacking, because a lot of things are short form, from text messaging to online DMs. It's very short form, and the art of communicating properly has been lost. And so for me, I would just say, in my opinion, I feel like social media was a great thing. It was a great idea, and it was great for a time. But now it's starting to kind of seep into this cesspool where people now they would more rather have friends online and followers online than they would have in person. Do you see that same thing? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I think that too much of anything is a problem. And I do believe that there's a level of that we've gone beyond when it comes to the amount of social media that, we intake as individuals. I think even myself, a part of this generation, I do feel like, there are parts of, social skills that I definitely need to redefine. And if I wasn't so, locked in on my phone, on social media, and doing a lot of texting instead of actual interpersonal communication, that I lack. And I think that this goes across the board. And Dad, I remember you talking about you as like now as a director of operations, you talk about how you interview a lot of people, and a lot of people that come in are actually people around my age, maybe slightly older, 25 and younger. And you've even mentioned to me that they have no like wherewithal on how to really like conduct themselves in a certain fashion. And it's code switch is such an important thing, right? Like how I act at work, like me as a person, right? My morals and my ethics will stay across the board. But how I act in different settings, it always changes. How I am with, the homies is different. How I am at work is different. How I am with family is different. It's still me, but how I kind of present myself is always different. I feel like that's a skill that, has kind of dissipated, and the lines have become really blurred. How do you feel about that?
I actually agree. I do think that we have lost. I think our phones have become the center of the communication medium. Back in the day, you had letters, you had phone calls, you had email, you had face-to-face communication, and they were kind of like they had their place. But the face-to-face communication was the paramount. Now it's the phone call. People are better. I've literally met people who are better texters than they are talkers. They can respond on emails or even on social media, great, but face to face, it's the most awkward thing in the world. And I feel like we need to get back to balancing that out. Otherwise, we'll risk losing a piece of thing, like a piece of society that makes us human. I think compassion and empathy, though you can gain that from, I guess, like video media, but when it comes down to texting or even online like message boards, you lose that empathy. You lose that ability to connect. What makes us human, our ability to communicate and connect to one another. Like when someone tell you a sad story, you feel it here. So not everyone has the ability to read a sad story and feel it. It's kind of like, oh man, that's messed up. They kind of push it to the side, and that leads to, in the overworld, as I like to call it, I call the real world the overworld. You see a lot of people who don't care about someone anymore. And now you see kids, or they don't have that respect that they once did when parents were actually face to face. Because parents in my generation, even we have been affected by this. You have you ever been to a restaurant where a family is eating at a restaurant, but everyone's on their phone. No one's conversing. Everyone is on their phones. Back in the day, dad, mom, sister, brother, however your family dynamic is, you'll sit down. People talk about how was your day, what did you do, how was swim practice, how was basketball practice, and I feel like everyone was connected and you knew what was going on. Now it's this. That's all you see. Heads craned, necks craned. I'm surprised people are not like naturally like this in this current era, because we all look at our phones. And I wish we can just communicate more. I feel like that will actually go a long way to helping our mental health, which kind of brings me to this next topic. Do you feel like in the current era with the advent of social media, do you feel like your self-esteem or maybe your self-image have taken a hit because you're able to see so many people of varying ages and their success or failure?
Yeah, most definitely. I think that comparison is just one of those things that I feel like I fall trapped to a lot. And I know a lot of you guys out there, around my age and even younger and even slightly older, you guys fall into that trap of a certain lifestyle that you believe or may believe that these people are living. And it's sad. And it definitely, when I see someone posting, doing some amazing trip or something like that, I just assume that they automatically live, that life of being free. Right. I feel like, damn, while they're out there doing their thing, I'm over here just watching it. Right. I'm over here just sitting on the couch or sitting on wherever I'm at, just watching that happen. And the thing about it, and I'm trying to do better, and I suggest, and a message to you guys is, what you see online is not the full picture, right? These people, they could have been saving up for years for this trip. They could have borrowed money. They could be in substantial debt. They could have, done something crazy, maybe sold drugs to get the money.
That's very true.
I don't know,
That's
right?
possible.
I don't really know what their situation is and how they're doing what they're doing, but comparison is a thief of joy. That's my biggest thing that I have to say to you guys and to everyone that's watching.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I do believe that we spend so much time on the phone and watching people live their lives that oftentimes we forget to live our own. That we forget that we are people too, and that for the most part, the majority of what people can achieve, we can achieve it too. Yes, you have great singers like a Beyonce or Adele, or you'll have great athletes like LeBron James or Michael Jordan who have like these innate gifts. But for the major things that people can achieve, a great job, a well-paying job, an education, we can achieve those things. A good trip, if you save up enough money, you can go on a trip to Hawaii or Dominican Republic or whatever the case may be. You can do those things, but we spend so much time watching these influencers or these I guess celebrities that we kind of get trapped, and we envy them, or we start believing that if you don't have what they have, then you're not good enough. And I think it burrows deep in the psyche, and it increases depression, so much so that as a parent of three boys, my son being 22, I have also a 11-year-old and I have a 1-year-old, and it's hard for me to parent and tell my son that, oh, you can achieve that, you can get that, when he sees someone his own age, because his whole thing becomes, when can I get that? Because all he sees is jobs that pays, $20 an hour, $15 an hour, $16 an hour, but a trip to, like, a plane ticket can be $1,000 plus a hotel plus the fun activities. So his whole thing is, I have 6,000. I need $6,000, but it take me 5 or 6 months to even make that. So I feel like we need to get back to realism, get back to living our lives, and realize that there are people who are doing better, and there's people who are not doing as well as us, and we can be okay. We can be okay being regular. Again, that's another topic. I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but it's okay. I'm going to tell you to the viewers, it's okay to be average. Majority of us are. That's fine. You can have a great life. You have a great life by being an average person, right? All you have to do is work hard, save your money, find like side gigs, podcasting, writing, whatever you need to do to make an extra buck here and there so you can save. You can do that. But social media should not be the reason why you feel inadequate. You got anything else to add?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot to be said when it comes to like social media and its impact. And again, technology is amazing, right? It's amazing, and there's a lot that can come of it, but it's all about the use of it and the purpose we use it for. And I think it's important, moderation, and to understand that there's more to what you see on that screen. There's a bigger, outside factor, outside, influence and fact going on about it. But I think that everyone that's watching, you guys should just keep in mind that don't let, comparison, dictate your life and really make it impact, how you feel about yourself, and understand that, just because they're doing good doesn't mean that you're doing bad. And I think that a lot of people kind of forget that. And I definitely forget it myself. But I think that this transitions well into our next topic. Our next topic is education. So is higher education still worth the cost? With AI coming around, I think it changes the purpose of certain degrees that people actually get. And it kind of transitions to the question is higher education worth the cost? My opinion is it depends on what degree you're getting, especially with the uprising, AI that's coming in. So
I actually agree. Background on myself, I have a master's degree. I don't have that much debt because I am a veteran. So my school was mostly paid for. Any debt I accrue is because of my own, unfamiliarity with like the whole, loan borrowing thing and, circumstances. I didn't always make the money I did now. Sometimes I had to get a loan, school loan, to take care of bills. But now I'm good to go. My son is currently in college, and I feel like like my son said, in certain areas, in certain avenues, or in certain disciplines, you would need a degree. If you want to be a doctor, no amount of AI will ever take the place of a doctor. Engineering, even though AI can come up with a great plan, it can't actually build what we need to be built, at least not yet. So I would say, depending on what career field you're going into, it'll be great to have a college degree or formal education. With the advent of apps like Coursera or even YouTube, you can actually get some informal education and learn a trade or whatever the case may be via those mediums. Like if you want to do digital, like social editing or any type of media, you can learn it from YouTube. You can learn it from Coursera. You don't necessarily have to go to school and accrue $40,000 of student loans, because again, a lot of people are not paying student loans, and we know for a fact that whoever's in the White House can dictate how rigorous they go after loan repayment. And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where your credit score is 1, because you want to take out a student loan and not pay it back. So I think I feel like depending on what you're going for, is necessary. Um, do you feel like you get more bang for your buck? So yeah, we know the doctors, lawyers, they will make a lot of money. But do you think like a business degree or something like that? Do you feel like from what you've seen in your quest for, I guess, a better job, more money, do you feel like in your industry, in particular, hospitality, a degree is necessary?
That's a good question. I think that I'm going to kind of rewind the tape a little bit back. I think that when it comes to getting a degree, I think the most important thing is planning. I think that planning and having an idea of what you want to do is critical. So not only do you have to think about what you want to do like the now, right? Whether you want to get a degree or not, that's a decision you should make as soon as possible. Especially if you're in already 12th grade or you're already out of college and you're considering to get into school or a higher education. Planning. I think slightly off topic, but I do think that high schools do need to do a better job with informing students about different types of loans, different like types of credit card, debit cards, all the financial type of thing. I think that high schools, especially someone who recently graduated from high school, I think high schools need to do a better job with educating us on the importance of good credit, the types of loans you can get, subsidized versus unsubsidized. All those things I do believe that schools need to implement and do a better job with, because those things matter when you go outside of school. You're going to say something, Pops?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, do you think that schools have those resources and kids don't seek them out, or do you think it should be part of the regular curriculum, just like math or social studies?
I think that that should be a part of the curriculum. And a lot of you may be wondering, what is something that, how can they implement that as a curriculum and have, allow you to have enough time to do all your other courses? Well, personally, for me, if they were to eliminate a course, I think it should be, I think they should mandate you to select an elective that's about college in the future. A lot of the a lot of the electives they have, you get to pick and choose what you like, which is fine. But I think they should make a student allow them to pick an elective, and then at least do 1 year or one semester of an elective that's like kind of forced in a way, or mandated, so they can at least have that knowledge, and that way it's there. A lot of students, myself, I didn't really know what was readily available. I don't think that the school necessarily did the best job in allowing me to know what's available. So I might have missed out on a lot of opportunities that they had that I didn't know. But that's why I think that they should make a course something similar to that, to where it's like, okay, the student needs to do at least one semester of this course, just so that way you have a little bit of something to go off of when you get out of high school.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I think that is actually a great idea, and I think you can call it planning for the future or something like that. Because if people in my generation below and back, do you remember when we used to have home economics, shop and woodwork, all that good things, and you can actually learn how to build or make food or whatever the case may be. You kind of learn life skills in addition to academia, and I think they need to bring that back, and I think they need to tie that in because I would say, I guess some of you probably be thinking like, oh, it wouldn't be on the parents to tell their kids about school and loans. But the fact of the matter is, we had a whole generation of people who made bad financial decisions because we were never taught that. So banking on your parents to teach you about student loans if they don't even have a college degree, or having your parents teach you about loans and percentage rates when they had to take out a payday loan, which are lecherous, by the way, to take out a payday loan to so they can get food or get gas to go to work. I don't think that's good. But kids have to go to school. That in this country, school is mandatory, and you can guide young minds or bake into young minds at least something. Even for the ones who don't go to college, they can at least have that, how to balance a checkbook, what a loan is, what an interest rate, so they can at least have that knowledge base, so they can make more informed decisions. So I think that's correct. And
and again, like things like credit cards and all that stuff, like we all need credit. Respectfully, I don't care who you are, whether you go to college or not, you drop out of high school or not. to get a home, and I feel like most people that are alive, I'm sure most of you guys want a home. You can't get a home with a terrible credit. You just can't.
No.
And if you do,
the interest rate might be crazy.
you about to be in debt for all of eternity.
And they don't take the home back.
And yeah, so, again, I mean, it's just some of my recommendations. Now, back to what you were asking about, is higher education worth the cost? It depends how you plan. It depends on how you play your cards. I think that there are some degrees that are, in my opinion, right, that are washed out.
Like what?
Like business administration. This is the thing about it. The way I see it is this. Degrees, most things in life is all about supply and demand. If you have a high amount of something, the value of it decreases.
Yeah.
You start to want it less.
That's true.
Right? If you eat McDonald's every single day, the more and more you're going to get used to eating McDonald's, the more and more, it's going to just McDonald's. But if you eat McDonald's, if you eat it, treat yourself here and there, it's going to taste a lot better. It's going to have a lot more meaning behind it. So a lot of people are getting very, very like the same degrees: business administration, master's in business admin, economics, accounting. My thing is this. You have a lot, these jobs, they get hundreds of props, back me up. They get hundreds of applications, don't they?
They true. That's true.
So if you apply to a job with a business administration degree, but 60 other people have that same exact degree, how do you stand out? How does your resume say, oh, I'm more qualified than them, or, oh, you should give me a better chance than them, when they also have that same exact degree? Experience.
Okay.
Experience, possible certifications, internships, anything possible. In my opinion, if you go online, look up the most common degrees that people get, those degrees are the degrees you should avoid. Now, if it's something that you really need that degree, go for it. But the economics degrees, the accounting degrees, although those degrees, they do pay well, AI is coming up. There is not a single professor in this world
Very true.
where if I ask them to solve a specific accounting or economic equation and I type it into ChatGPT, I promise you that phone will solve it in a blink of an eye, and that professor will. That's just how it is right now. That's kind of that's why, like, those degrees to me, eventually they're going to be worthless because AI is taking over. All they have to do is type in the numbers, and that's AI does the rest. You don't need a degree to type in numbers into a computer, especially if you know what those numbers are.
That is true.
So that's kind of my take on that. It's just you gotta be careful with, and that's when that planning ahead comes into play, where you have to know, is this degree going to be good in 20, 30 years from now? Most of us now that get those economic and accounting degrees, we're probably safe. But I would say in the next 100 years or so, I feel like AI is really going to take over those heavy numbers based type of degrees, in my opinion.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that's definitely fair. We could definitely talk about AI like as a whole and how that would change society on another podcast. But I will say you're 100% correct. I do think certain degrees of oversaturation actually lowers the impact and the viability of the degree.
Yeah.
If a lot of people have that degree, you will have to look at the other intangibles in order to make a decision. Like you said, like people forget certifications are usually cheaper. And you can actually get those. Like, again, Coursera offers them. We're not sponsored by Coursera, but Coursera, if you want to sponsor us, I'm open to that. They have a lot of certifications you can get. Experience. I'm almost certain that many of you have applied to a job, and my son's age or younger, and the job will say something like this: bachelor's degree with 3 years of experience, and you're like, what? what is experience? Because most of us, when you're in school, you're not really working, because back in my day, they said get a degree, it will elevate your life. That's what we believe. That's why I pursue higher education. Yeah. And yes, it has worked for me, but it wasn't because of the degree. It's because of the experiences I kind of learned along the way. I was in like almost every field. And so my experience plus those degrees pushed me over the edge to a 6-figure job. However, there are many people who actually get degrees, even master's degrees, and they're working at Chipotle, and that's not fair to them. So my son is right planning, knowing what your degree is for. If you want to be a general manager, you probably need a degree or at least a high level of experience. The degree can actually mitigate some of that experience because you can actually take a degree and convert it into experience. But yeah, I would say to sum this up, the question you should ask yourself is, do I need a degree to be successful in my field? Then the next question should be, if I need a degree, do I have a way to pay for it? Yep. Then after do I have a way to pay for it, look into the different areas and avenues afforded to you to pay for that degree. Yep. And then if you have to take a loan out, get a subsidized loan, because typically those are more safe than unsubsidized loans, and make sure you have a payment plan. Live below your means, and they'll allow you to pay for that degree. Would you like to segue to the next topic?
Yeah, and honestly, I think that, we can do this smoothly. Again, as we get older, we go through many different experiences. We try to figure out what we want to do career-wise. We try to figure out college is a yay or nay. We try to figure it out. So in that time frame, in that journey, our next thing is, does suffering build character or only trauma? Right. And we all suffer. We all have our own things that go on, but go ahead, Dad, take over.
Okay. So that just a segue in, and this whole podcast, let's just take a brief pause. This particular episode today is talking about essentially life as it happens, the different ways you'll encounter certain things, right? It was this education. And so now we brought up, we want to talk about suffering and trauma, because if anyone has ever been low income or whatever the case may be, you have had moments where you had to decide between a bill or food. A lot of us are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. And in my generation, they say suffering builds character, and that the more you suffer, the more resilient you will be. And believe it or not, I actually believe that too. As a person who went through a lot of stuff, and I guess we will explore some of my traumas through these podcasts because it is something that's cathartic to me. I can say, depending on what we're talking about, some suffering, I believe, is necessary for you to be more, how can I say this, more resilient, for you to be more appreciative of the things you have. I do believe that without suffering, a lot of people tend to not really truly understand what they have and how important it is. Like if a person who has never eaten, who has to scrap and fight to eat, versus a person who have abundance, their worldview is different. So when that person that struggles to eat now has food, they value it. They don't waste it, and they're also more keen to share it. So I do think there is a space in our lives for suffering, but when suffering turns into trauma, because not all suffering is trauma, in my opinion. And before I get into my tangent, I'll let my son speak. Do you believe that suffering is necessary for success?
I do think that a level of suffering is absolutely necessary. It's as sadistic as it may sound. I think that a level of suffering, it absolutely does matter. And it builds character. It builds who we are as a person. It shows what we can and cannot handle. And it builds grit. I think that obviously there are certain things that I believe no one should ever have to go through and no one should ever go through, right? Crazy stuff. I'm not going to get too crazy into it, but I'm sure you guys can imagine. I'm trying to keep it PG.
Yeah, for now.
For right now, yeah. For sure. But I do think that, again, a person who was always built, or who was, who was raised with money, right? And all that, they always lived a very fruitful life with money. If that's the entire life they live and they grow up and end up having money too, I feel like they won't know the real worth of money. Yeah. They won't really appreciate it as much as someone who started from the bottom and made their way up. And that doesn't make you a good or bad person at all.
No.
It's all about the perspective and how you take things on. And I think that trauma I feel like in a sense, trauma, in a small sense, you can kind of control and dictate what trauma is to you. It's all about how you take it.
Mhm.
Like if you, you know, I grew up personally for me, like I grew up with, not a lot of money and all that. And there, that could be a level of trauma, but I choose to see that as something where I don't want to be again.
Okay.
And I use it as like a motivation. Right. So not all suffering, has to be taken or considered to be like trauma. You can take it and make it be something like a motivation. It's all
Yeah.
about how you like. It's I can't
how,
put it
how,
into
how you
words.
metabolize it. So yeah,
Right.
I agree with you. I do think see I see trauma as a barrier. I see trauma as a wall. I see suffering as fuel. I can use my suffering to fuel my ascension. If I want to, like, to me, also growing up without money. Started off a 2-parent household, went to a 1-parent household, had to help my mom raise 5 siblings. As we're from the South. Well, I'm from the South. My sons were born here, but I'm from the South, and our parents whooping us like corporal punishment, right? Your parents spanking you or whooping you, whatever the case may be. To a lot of people, that was traumatic. To me, I don't consider that trauma. That discipline kept my nose clean, kept me out of. I was never in the streets. Good grades. I take care of my kids. I mentor other kids. I'm a basketball coach. I work in healthcare. I do a lot of great things, and I feel like if I didn't have that type of guidance then, and I'm not saying that whooping your kids will equal a 6-figure career, stable parents, and stable mental health, because we have, again, that's a topic for another day. But I will say my suffering as a child, my suffering back then fueled me to be the man I am today. Because I saw the gaps in my upbringing, and I said, I'm gonna take the good things my parents did, and I'm going to apply those, and I'm gonna take the things that they didn't do or things they could have done better, and I'm gonna apply those and make me a better person. So I choose to make my suffering, or things I suffered back then, it fueled me now. Now there are some traumas that we will have a topic on some very serious topics. Um we'll have a show on very serious topics, and we'll talk about when the suffering like evolve into trauma. And then traumas, it really can be a barrier to your success. As we all know, people who have trauma like PTSD, right? I'm a veteran. I know a lot of people PTSD. I myself have PTSD. It makes living life extremely difficult. And for those people, that is something they should never go through. Like whether it's war or sexual trauma, it's something that people should never go through. That to me, there's no lesson learned from those type of things. You can't learn a lesson from those. But going out a meal, you know, not having a 9-bedroom, 5-bath house, those kind of days, not to be facetious, but those type of things, you learn. I would tell my son, as my oldest son, he's not benefiting from what I'm doing now. My middle and my younger son will benefit more because I'm able to give them more, provide them more, still teach them the value of money and the value of life. But he didn't have to. He didn't get the fruits of that particular part of my labor because I barely had any fruit to split. So I do believe that suffering can, for sure, lead to a more resilient person. Um, but not always, because that's no absolutes. Some people are just naturally resilient because life. And for people with money, we're not saying because you have money you're soft or anything. I don't want you to believe that too, because even within money you can suffer. We understand that. But we're saying like your suffering itself can propel you forward. But also getting back into that, do you think people sometimes play up their suffering, especially in the advent of social media? Do they play up their suffering to garner sympathy, to even get money? Because sometimes you these GoFundMe's or get out of control. So do you think people also taking their suffering and putting that out there and making money off of it?
Yeah, that's 100% is a thing. And again, like, we're not here to tell you guys what you're going through is not real. It's not traumaful for you guys. We all have our own story. We all have our own background. We're just trying to give a little bit of sense of light where, again, like, just everything an individual goes through should extrapolate everything possible and learn what they can from it and try their best to kind of throw out everything else that's not needed, right? Feel the emotion, go through it, understand it, learn from it, and move forward. Now, I definitely do believe that there are a lot of people that exaggerate what they're going through, right? They want to elicit some type of level of sympathy from people,
Yes.
right? GoFundMe for, you know, I have 2 surgeries coming up, 3 surgeries coming up, you know, like just crazy stuff like that. And again, we're not here to say an individual's problems is not a problem or not a trauma or anything like that. But I do think that a lot of people exploit the simple fact that there are caring people out here. I would say you and I were very caring people out here. You know, they exploit that fact and they try to get money or try to get clout or anything like that using social media, right? Using that platform to to get a reaction, to get something. And I personally, I don't believe in doing things like that. You know, I don't believe that it's really ever okay to basically exaggerate your problems to make it, you know, to make it seem as if it's as big as what it is.
Okay. I definitely agree with that. So let's bring it home to like in a more intimate parental child setting. Do you think it is okay for parents to make their kids suffer in a way? Like for instance, do you think if you really need me, I say, well, nah, I want you to be strong, so I'm going to withhold my help to see if you can do it yourself. Do you think that's a time and place for that, or do you think a parent should be able to help their kids, like help their kids through that suffering? What is your take on that? And I'll talk about my whole take.
It really depends on what the suffering, what the context of the suffering is. Sometimes figuring things out on your own is the best way to go, and that's how you really learn from things.
Mhm.
But I do think that there's certain contextual times where a parent should step in and really, you know, kind of give them pointers, right? Like, you know, let's say a young, you know, young teenager, young adult is, you know, I would like madly in love with a girl,
Yeah.
right? And they need kind of guidance and they need, you know, that expertise. I think that it's important for a parent to be there and be like, hey, like, I think, you know, you should do X, Y, and Z, right? Get to like have that kid tell you a little bit about that person. And that way you as a parent who has more experience, who's been there, done that, can kind of guide and coach, mentor, you know, your son or your daughter to try to hopefully make things more clear. And the good thing about making things clear is it actually can help an individual make a decision on something.
Okay.
Right. So let's say that person's on the brink of maybe trying to make that person their girlfriend or their boyfriend, but they're unsure. But you're able to make things a little bit more clear. And now they can make their own decision, right, on yay or nay on making them their boyfriend or girlfriend, you know, whatever the case is.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I definitely understand that. I definitely get that too. And I do think there is a fine balance between, and when I say suffering, I'll define suffering as let your kids fail. I'll define it then. I would define that so it makes sense to everyone. I do think there's something to be said where parents, sometimes parents can be too helpful. And then when the kid grows up to be an adult, they're actually are unable to actually handle the rigors of life.
They're dependent.
Very dependent. But I do think there's a point where if you're too detached, the kid become too independent, where they don't see a need to have anyone. And that was me at one point. At one point, I didn't have a need for anyone. My whole thing was, why do I need help? I can do this by myself. But in the end of the day, we all need help. So I would say, growing up as an '80s baby, my mom, loving, I love her to death. Mom, you know I love you. But she was a very hard mother. Like she was tough love. She believed in tough love, and so a lot of times I had to learn a lot of lessons on my own. Um, for and sometimes it's because I was hard headed as a male child. My father left. My mom had to step up. And just, I won't say play both roles. I don't believe people can play both roles. It's very difficult to do something like that. But I do believe my mom she had to be a little tougher than she probably would have if she had my father in the house. And so when I started dating, you made a good point with dating. She warned me against a lot of girls, and like house maybe sometimes they can be not the most honest. But you know, as a boy, we see what we want, and she warned me against it. I went against her warning. I got my heart broken, and then she said, "Now you see what I'm talking about." And I took that, And so sometimes I think in situations where your kid is not listening, you kind of have to let them see. You have to let them suffer, if you will. And then once they suffer and they hit that rock bottom, then they'll accept your help. So I do think there's a balance. I feel like if you try to prevent the suffering and it's rebuffed, then you let them go. And then if they were to suffer or fail, then you kind of help them out. Again, the suffering should not evolve to trauma, though. You know.
Yeah, it's such a parenting is such a convoluted job, and I think that being a parent and wanting to be a parent, that should take your time. There's no rush to becoming a parent because it's such a convoluted thing. And again, a balance, like you said, is the key, right? Finding that balance is the hardest thing. And so, it's kind of like a tug and war type of thing. And it's all about finding that perfect median. I think that your generation, Pops, like, I feel like the parenting back then was a lot more hard, a lot more strict, a lot more on it. Nowadays, one can argue that it's a lot of hand holding.
Oh, yeah, I mean, one can argue or not argue,
Right.
but I do think the reason why, again, going back to the suffering and trauma, staying on topic, right? Suffering and trauma. I don't think we allow our kids to suffer enough, and I think because of what we went through, 80s, 70s, 50 babies, what we went through, we try to over protect our kids. Like my dad wasn't there, so I'm always there. I maybe I didn't get enough hugs or love, so I always kiss and hug my sons and like, hey, I love you, I care for you, I always be there for you. I do think there's a balance of that stuff, but again, I think the true median for everything, including just take whether we talk about parenting and allowing your kid to suffer or suffering in general, is that median, that median area. You suffer a little bit, suffer enough for you to get the point, but not enough for you to be so damaged that you can't function. Yeah. So to me, I've been slowly but surely pulling back on my older one so he can understand what it is to be a man. Because honestly, as a man, that like community, it's really difficult. And a lot of men know, and we'll talk about this on another podcast, that there's not a lot of community around men, and so you kind of have to go at it alone. And sometimes I pull back on my son so he can do things on his own. So when he has his own family, he's more resilient and able to handle things. So that's where I let a little bit of that suffering come in, but I will never let him suffer to the point where he gets debilitated and now he's a broken person. Because brokenness, a broken people, a traumatic person, it gets really bad. A person who is trauma filled oftentimes inflict trauma on other people. And that's what this all leads to. Like this whole conversation leads to. If you allow suffering to evolve to trauma, that person becomes trauma filled. It's like a virus or a cancer, and they start to infect everyone and everything around them, further expanding that trauma.
A domino effect.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we got a lot of good points today. If you guys have any recommendations on future topics, any suggestions, any advice or anything like that, please let us know in the comment section below. I think that our purpose here is just to try to touch you guys in a sense to let you guys know that you guys are not alone, and that we're just trying to give our opinions, as two regular people out here, trying to give our honest opinions on how we feel about certain things and topics. And we hope that you guys can relate to it, and maybe as a community we can kind of make this known and make people try to strive for better and do what's righteous, right? Do the right thing, and
I agree.
Spread the word.
I do agree. I do think so. Thank you guys for listening. I do believe that as we get better at this podcasting, we'll be able to find our niche. So any topic suggestions you guys want to hear about, or you want to hear, like my son said, what we went through, like you can just throw a topic down there. We will take it. We'll research it. We'll put our own personal spin on it, and we'll be engaging with you guys. Again, these are conversations my son and I had, one-on-one without a camera, and we decided to just bring it online. So again, thank you guys for watching, and we hope you guys tune in for the next episode.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below.
All right.
Let's get it.
And peace.
All right.